Hello there. Welcome to the NoCo, the podcast covering Northern Colorado communities, people, everything going on. I'm your host, Ivan Wayne. Who am I interviewing today? Let's see. Who is it gonna be today? Her name? Jen Beshore. She is the general manager of Social in Fort Collins. This is a very popular underground cocktail bar out there in FOCO. She met me before opening on a Friday afternoon, and you may notice that you'll hear some side conversation in the background. You'll notice a lot of clinking. The staff were arriving and getting ready for one of the busiest days of the week, so please excuse the background noise. But Jen and I had a great conversation. It's such a neat space, and hope you like it. So here we are. I sit here with Jen Beshore, general manager of Social in Fort Collins.
Hi there, how are you?
Doing very well. It's Friday afternoon, third interview, or the third podcast here of the day, and start us off here. I was going to call it a speakeasy, but I don't know if that's the right term. What would you classify Social as?
I would say, it's our modern take on a speakeasy, you know. We are a craft cocktail bar inspired by Prohibition. I think that's pretty true. When they found this space underground, I think it lent itself to more of that speakeasy vibe. So, yeah.
Right, yeah. So for people who've never been to Social or are not familiar, there is a gate up on the street level. Mm-hmm. It's right here in Old Town, Fort Collins.
In Old Town Square.
And you walk down the steps, and there's this big wooden and cast iron door. Mm-hmm. And you open that, and it's this dimly lit, much bigger than I expected area down here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we seat almost 150 people down here, so it is a lot bigger than most people imagine when they first walk down the steps. And especially, when people call it a speakeasy, they expect kind of a smaller, more intimate setting, although I think we've nailed the intimate setting part. A lot of people do expect it to be a lot smaller than it is down here.
I would agree. Being in here and feeling the vibe down here is something that would be hard to translate via audio. I feel like people just have to come.
Have to experience it.
Yeah. One piece of the interior I wanted to ask about is the art. Inspiration for that? Did you get it commissioned, or are these original art pieces?
So these are pieces that were actually advertisements for different kinds of liquors. I can't really state the exact years for those, but if I had to guess, I would say, early 1900s, 1920s, that era. We've got absinthe posters and different kinds of aperitif and digestive posters down here as well. Very European in style.
Yeah, no, it definitely added to the vibe. And some of the furniture in here is different. Like the space that we're set up has these interesting couches. Did you get these views? Did you have like a specific vibe? Just what does that process look like?
So one of the owners, Ryan Hodak, his wife Christine, was the one that actually conceptualized most of this that we're sitting in right now. She came to the table and she had boards and drawings that pretty much looked exactly how this looks right now, with really nice fancy shiny wallpaper, contrasted with concrete walls, tufted vinyl, leather-looking vinyl couches and fancier chairs. This was meant to be more of an intimate setting back here, for people just to gather and to have a space where they could talk and not feel like, like maybe they're in a bar, someplace a little more private.
So to give people different types of like social options within the same place.
A different kind of feel, depending on what their mood is. Exactly.
Yeah. I just said the word social. Where did the name come from? Are you aware of that and the story behind it?
So, the name Social, Ty Fulcher and Ryan Hodak came up with, as well as Rafi Georgian. I don't know exactly where it came from, but everything that they've done to create this space has integrated into that word social. So when you come in, if you sit at the bar, we have magnetic stir plates like that you would see in a chemistry setting behind the bar that stir our drinks for us. We have blow torches that we can use for certain garnishes like cinnamon sticks, or we have a drink that we light a peach Earl Grey tea on fire for. So within that, like all of these little things that some people would call novelties that actually are very, very functional to us are talking points as well. If you're a guest and you're sitting there and watching the staff use these things, it is a way for you to engage with our bartenders, to ask them about what they're doing, to, talk to your neighbor that's sitting next to you, and talk about things like that. So everything that they created within this space, the way the food is, it's very shareable. It's meant to be shared. It's not big entree-sized portions. The bar, of course, the bar setup, the way we have some communal tables that are bigger for bigger parties. Even, there's no televisions down here. Very little distraction. We didn't really plan it this way, but cell phone service down here is not necessarily great either. So that, kind of forces people to engage a little bit more into the experience of being with the people they're with down here.
Okay, you said a lot of things there I want to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
So, can we go back to the magnetic stirring devices?
Mm-hmm, the magnetic stir plates.
I don't know if I've ever seen one.
So we use those pretty much for cocktails that are 100% alcohol in nature. Ultimately, you want to dilute that a little bit. My bar manager, Nathan, is here. I would say it's probably around 19 to 21% water content within that to make it not taste all boozy. Mm-hmm. You actually want it diluted a little bit. So they use it as a tool to save them time when they're making drinks, so they can just put that drink on a stir plate with a little bit of ice and let it dilute for a certain amount of time before they pour it in a glass to go out to the guest.
That's neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Right. And the fire, the drink that you light, it's like the inside of the cup. All of a sudden it comes on fire, right?
So the Old Stogie is one of our main drinks that we've been known for. The Old Stogie is made with rye whiskey, citrus bitters, and brown sugar.
That sounds nice.
And what they do is we get a tea that's blended for us in town here in Old Town by Happy Lucky Tea Shop. It's a peach Earl Grey tea blend that they make for us specifically for this drink. We take that tea, we make it into a syrup. That's the first step. And then we soak big wedges of oranges in that syrup. So when we make the drink, we take those orange wedges and line the inside of a glass with the orange. And then we take a little bit of tea on a plate and light it on fire and put that glass on top of it. So what happens is the sugars and the oils absorb the smoke from the tea being lit on fire. So then we take it to the table and we present it to the table. We take the glass off of the plate and it smokes up beautifully, and then we pour the drink into that glass. So the smoke, the aromatics of that smoke lingers within that drink as people drink that drink. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that's some real science going on there. It reminds me, it wasn't until probably a year or two ago I realized how much science is in cooking.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just reminded me, like, I think maybe the average consumer can just think, like, oh, making drinks is, it's 4 ingredients, stir, shake, whatever, ice. Mm-hmm. But no, there's like real science to a lot of this stuff. And perfecting the art of a cocktail.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in some ways, you can get pretty formulaic and make a really good balanced drink, but within that as well, within the world of cocktails, there's so many new products coming out. One of our newest that we started carrying is a liquor that's made from aloe. It's called Chirot. And, just being able to take these different liquors that, you haven't had access to before and creating something spectacular that's really well balanced is, it's definitely an art form. These
Right.
guys are very, very talented, and they all have very incredible palates to be able to taste just the nuance of a tiny little difference between, a quarter of an ounce of syrup versus, just a touch more than that.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's pretty great. It's nice.
Yeah, you said something about the palates of your bartenders and the people who come up with different cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
I teach at Front Range Community College as an adjunct psych instructor, and I went through one of the labs where we find out how sensitive of a taster we are
Mm-hmm.
by putting these 3 different chemical strips on our tongue. And I found out I'm like a lame taster. I don't taste as much as average people.
Oh, wow.
And so it makes me wonder if some of your bartenders or people that are coming up with awesome cocktails, either here or around the country, are super tasters. They can pick out those notes more subtly than most people, and
Mm-hmm.
it might give them an advantage.
Yeah, I
So-
think there's definitely something to it. I also think when you're tasting on that level that maybe there's a trainable way, maybe because you're doing it so often that your palate is a little more in tune to it. Practice makes
Practice.
perfect with everything, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. The TV's distraction, absence of TV here.
Yeah.
I appreciate that point. My girlfriend knows that I am easily distracted by screens. I actively avoid places like Buffalo Wild Wings because me being able to engage in a conversation is destroyed
Right.
by the TV screens.
Right.
I'm like a bug to a bug zapper. I can't even keep my eyes.
Yeah.
They keep floating up to the TV, and I think that was intentional for you all, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, I think we're all very distracted in our worlds around us. And, they say the average person checks their phone 70 times in a day. So, it's like a little mini vacation down here.
Right.
Or at least you can think that if you would like to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's like a buzz topic these days. Is phones, social media. We have them. They're great. They do a lot of good things. I don't know if I want to draw this analogy, but like a weapon, they have to be used carefully.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of time under our belt to think about the ramifications of having these all-powerful computers in our pockets at all times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We're getting answers to questions we don't have yet. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And so
I agree. It's like,
appreciate,
the human mind is kind of struggling to keep up
right?
a little bit with technology.
Yeah. I heard a phrase yesterday that law is terrible at keeping up with technology. We have so many pieces of tech now, and we don't have any legislation. We don't know how, drones and all sorts of things. We don't have the laws in place
Right.
to make
Right.
decisions
Regulating
about
those things is,
Yeah.
a big part of how we integrate it into our lives as well.
And the same could be, like you said, the human brain.
Mhm.
So, maybe we're not keeping up enough, and these have become decisions that we make. So it's nice to know that you intentionally plan that here.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Absolutely. Social was planned as, so Ty and Ryan and Rafi all got together and really saw that there was a need in Fort Collins for something else. You look around in Fort Collins and we have this beautiful history of breweries and great beer, microbreweries, and I think they really saw a niche that needed to be filled within that, and that's why they focused on craft cocktails more so. And then, you also look around and we've got a college town and a lot of places that cater to students looking for cheaper drinks. And I think they saw a need for a true, adult bar, a place where people could come and have conversations and, just, it's all about a meaningful connection really in the end. But I think that they saw that, and that's what made them kind of take off on this idea of social.
Absolutely. I think people are craving it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think so too.
Because speakeasies and places that have kind of a feel like this, I don't know if they weren't popular, but I feel like they're getting popular, or they already have been. I went to the one in Greeley. It used to be called 1908. Now I don't know, it just changed ownership. Just people who own the crest there. And I have no idea. But first time I went down there, couldn't use my cell phone, and it was dark, and it just had this vibe that I appreciated. And I don't think I'd ever been to a place like that before that.
Yeah.
And it was something new. Do you get people who come in here to social, and it's maybe their first experience in a place like this, and they'll like tell you, like, wow, this is so nice, amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We really, when we first opened, we were pretty reluctant to advertise, to get the word out. We just figured word of mouth would probably carry that. This is just at the very beginning. And I don't think that Ty thought that it would be very busy. Like, he hadn't even hired a doorman at that point. And then all of a sudden we just found that people loved what we were doing already. I do have a lot of people that come in here, first-timers from out of town, and, it's a very memorable experience. The cocktails mixed with the kind of service that we like to give as well. The pineapple is our symbol. It's the symbol of hospitality worldwide. So we really pride ourselves on building relationships with people and not only getting to know their story, but letting them get to know yours as well, and building a little more meaningful of a connection with the guests that come in.
I was unaware that pineapple was such a hospitable symbol. Can you elaborate on that? I had no idea that social was linked to that. Is it is it on the logo?
It's our main logo. There's probably 10 of us that have the pineapple tattoo
Tattoos.
of our logo. When you walk down the steps to come into social, there's a pineapple just to the right of the door. All of us, give it a little lucky tap when we walk in. The pineapple's got a pretty amazing history. When they colonized America, there were places that would rent pineapples to people that were having parties, and that didn't mean you got to eat the pineapple. It just meant that you got to display it somewhere in your home, and it became, because of that, a symbol for people that would go out of their way to create an experience for their guests. So I think that's where it really, probably started. I think it also had to do with them not really understanding the cultivation of a pineapple and how to grow it at that time. That it was, mostly in the islands and things that they had to bring in from other places. So within that, it's just had a pretty amazing history. Just one little fruit,
That's so interesting. Did you all look up the lore to that, or how did you find that out?
Yeah. I guess in the 1970s it was a symbol for swingers too, but we don't really go into that.
Also hospitality.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you were in the story, so they would lend people a pineapple.
They would rent them out, yeah.
I gotta buy some pineapples and make some side money, I guess.
Right.
So they rented them out, and they were displayed as a symbol that you're welcome, and you had to give it back.
And then you gave it back. And then they ultimately would rent it out to someone with a lot of money that could cut it open and eat it as well for one of their parties. But
so if you paid enough, you got to cut it up.
Exactly, yeah.
And this was here or Europe or?
This was in North America.
Yeah. Wow. Today I learned.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let's see. I wanted to go back to this. You had mentioned in the video online that for you, one of the biggest things for this place is the feeling when a person first walks in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think in this business, there's a lot of when anyone goes into a social situation, they have a preconceived notion of what they want that to be, that experience to be. You know, hey, we're going to go out tonight. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have a whole lot of fun and meet up with this person. Maybe we'll get a little crazy, maybe not. So, you know, a lot of what I said in that video was having to do with people coming to social, and they have an expectation of what they want already in mind. We can facilitate something that is better than what they already anticipate, right? So a lot of the times, you know, on a Friday, Saturday night, we'll have a line outside. People will be waiting to get in.
It happened to me last weekend.
Yeah?
Yeah. Line was huge.
We try to do our best to, you know, our doorman is the first person people see, so he has to be approachable, and he has to be somewhat entertaining, and he has to be soft, and he has to, you know, want to guide these people to where their experience is actually starting in line, right? At the same time, facilitating for us down here, you know, he gives us a little lineup of all the people that are in line. And then as we have tables open up, we bring those people down and have the table set for as many people that are in their party. So our occupancy is exactly how many seats we have down here. So we created within that a structure of a seated bar. And although it's annoying to wait in line to get into a bar, I think that people are more comfortable when they do come down here because they already have a seat. They already have a server. They don't have to scramble and look around and try to find somebody that's leaving so they can sit down. You know, so there's already a sense of comfortability when they come down. And then we get them rolling and, you know, get them some drinks and some great food and start the experience that way as well. Right.
And what do you find, or I don't know if this is a hard question to answer, but what do you think people expect who haven't been here before? What do they walk in with?
I think that differs person to person. You know, people really reflect on the places that they're more comfortable in. So if they're more comfortable in a sports bar, then they may expect that kind of vibe. Just with most places they go, I don't know. A lot of people, I think, expect a little more formality than we perpetuate here. You know, I have a lot of people ask me what the dress code is, and I'm like, yeah, shorts and flip flops. Just wear clothes, and we're good.
Come on,
you know.
Come on in, pineapple.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't really know, but I know that we have the potential to make someone's day better than they thought it could be. So
right.
Why not try for that every time?
Yeah. And you mentioned food. Charcuterie. Am I saying
Charcuterie?
Charcuterie. Man, I knew I was
Charcuterie with the French accent.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to butcher it. Can you tell people what that is? And you mentioned your food.
So charcuterie is a French term. It has to deal with food that is shelf stable. So you've got smoked meats, cured meats, pickled vegetables, things that are a little more shelf stable in that way. That's really what it refers to. For us, it's a program where we do, you know, delicious meats and cheeses and pickles and jams and different things that we create for the guests in that way.
Right. Yeah, and it looked delicious. You all were talking about your meat slicers were like a prized point of social.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you named them.
Yes.
In fact,
we have 2 meat slicers. They are made by Emilio Mitidieri out of Italy. They're a hand crank slicer, and they're just gorgeous. We have 2. The big one is called Emilio. And The small one is Charlie. We named him after Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen. I don't know why. It was just a moment, and it stuck. And then the little slicer that we have, Charlie, is one that we take with us to events if we need to. So it's a little more portable. The other one is pretty big and, has its beautiful display. Yeah. So everybody can see it.
Right. Yeah, and the glass, the sort of like half wall that's made out of glass around it, looks really nice. Like,
yeah.
The kitchen area. It's like the whole vibe of this place. I'm probably going to say it more than once, but people got to come down here.
Yeah.
And check it out.
Yeah.
On your menu, there's a section of drinks called the aperitif. Am I butchering that as well?
Aperitif.
Aperitif. Yeah. What is that? It's like a. You mentioned that it was complimentary. It's something that people get when they first walk in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So for a guest that comes in before 8 o'clock at night and they sit down, we have these aperitifs that we make. Sometimes they have alcohol, sometimes they don't. Most of the time they do have a little bit. And it's just a way for our bartenders to get a little creative and maybe play with something they haven't played with before. And you get like a little tiny half a shot maybe of something that they've mixed for the day specifically. It's kind of something to wet your whistle, get your palate going a little bit as you're looking through the menu and deciding what you want to order.
Right, and then are those aperitifs a drink they can order if they enjoy it, or is it
Absolutely.
just for that?
No, they can order a drink.
Yeah,
like that if they want as well.
Kind of a conversation starter, like a welcoming mat. So
Exactly.
to speak.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really neat.
We tend to do that at the tables. We're not so much at the bar, but all the tables. If you sit down at a table before 8 o'clock, you'll get a little aperitif.
Right.
Yeah.
Also on the menu, I noticed that beer was spelled differently. This might be an ignorant question, but it's B-I-E-R-E, which is the...
Bière. It's a French spelling.
Okay. After you mentioned the French thing a second ago, I thought that might be the case.
Yep. Just a French spelling of it. I don't know. To me, when I look around this space, it looks a little more like, I would call it French industrial, maybe. Blending of like a little bit of a French Baroque and industrial elements, like the very stark concrete walls and the wooden beams above us.
Now, which came first? The design that seemed French, or did you all have a French idea in mind?
Ooh, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Chicken or the egg? Yeah.
Right?
Okay, well.
I think they probably all played well together, mingled well together, and it all formed from that, but I can't tell you 100% which came first.
Right.
Yeah.
I also noticed that your menu was kind of split up into multiple categories, and some of your main drink categories were standards, experiments, and throwbacks. So I assume standard is like, is it necessarily things you've made that were popular, or is it kind of like the stereotypical drinks you might find?
I would say none of our drinks are really stereotypical in any way. And additionally, that started from our website. The standards, the experiments, and the throwbacks. Those are actually different categories now.
Oh.
It's kind of ever-changing, ever-mutable,
Right.
And it just depends on the season, and it depends on where our bar staff is at and what they've been creating. If you want, I can grab a different menu too, and we can kind of go over what our vibe is now. It's always shifting a little bit, Social standards have become the drinks that we've started out with that have kind of become just very, very popular, and that if we took them off the menu at this point, we would probably have a riot on our hands, The Lavender Sour, the Whiskey Smash, those are our biggest talked about drinks and our most loved drinks, the ones that we sell a lot of. But also within that, there's like this fuzzy ground, like the old-fashioned. And old-fashioned is not a new drink to us. We just make it in a very specific way. So it's it's got its place on that standard list, even though it is technically a throwback, a drink that was invented, 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
Yeah, see, when I first saw throwback, I thought that meant, like, our bartenders used to make this drink. We don't now, but then we'll do, like, a 1 month run and we'll make it for you again. But now I see it means, like, the date of which those drinks originally came out.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. My grandfather was a bartender in the 30s and 40s, and I found an old bar book of his that had some handwritten recipes on it, and a lot of those recipes are drinks that we make here.
Yeah.
Not those exact recipes, but, the same drinks are those drinks. So, I think with anything, liquor is a trend as much as everything else, and people are kind of going back to the craft cocktails in that way. So yeah, there's a lot of history with different drinks, and it's really fun to get to know those. The rum swizzle, the old fashioned, you could go on for days.
Yeah, do you mind if we get a new menu?
Yeah, I can grab that for you.
I'd love to take a look.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first arrived, I asked Jen for an old-fashioned, like a half old-fashioned, because it's like 2:30 in the afternoon. Got a lot to do still. But she said, unfortunately, she couldn't because there was a whole setup to the system for making an old-fashioned here. And I thought that was unique because it was an assumption I made that, even though Social's not open right now, that she would be able to make it. But their process here is refined and unique enough to where she wouldn't be able to make that drink. So, yeah, I meant to stop in, and I come from a friend's birthday party. This was Saturday. We had to wake up early and do stuff on Sunday. So I was looking at that line. I was like, oh no! Like, I really wanted to stop in, but 'cause I'm gonna have to come back. I will. I am, especially now that I've seen the place. I am super just fascinated.
Cool.
I have to come in.
Cool, for sure.
Yeah,
so now we just rolled out this menu last week. It's got our autumnal offerings. So it's a little more geared to seasonal offerings and seasonal flavors.
Right, yeah. Okay, so I see social standards, pretty big category. That's what you were kind of talking about, like what people might think of as flagship cocktails?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. And then your seasonal stuff and your throwbacks. Very cool. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite here? Are you allowed to endorse one over another?
I have two favorites here that really kind of ride hand in hand and depends on the day. The La Vie en Rose is a mezcal cocktail that's made with a grapefruit liqueur. Mezcal is it's made from the same plant as a tequila, but it's cooked underground and no ventilation, so it tends to retain that smoky flavor to it. So the La Vie en Rose is, the way I describe it is it's very, very bright. It's a very bright drink. When you first take a sip, you're hit by the grapefruit. It almost makes your eyes water just a little bit. It's so bright. And then there's a couple little drops of rose water and allspice syrup that they use in that as well. That provides a nice balance. And then at the end, it's very soft and very smoky on the tail end because of that mezcal.
Yeah. Do you mind scooting forward towards the mic a little bit? Scoot your chair up. Let's see. And then what about the other one?
The other one is the Double Windsor. The Double Windsor is made with Irish whiskey and a pear-flavored cognac. Those are the two main liquors in it. It also has a dash of Saigon cinnamon and fresh lemon juice, as well as honey syrup.
Wow.
So it's a little bit sweet, and it's a little bit tart, and it's a little bit strong, and that cinnamon adds some depth to it as well. So
what was that one called?
That's called the Double Windsor.
The Double Windsor. I think that's going to be my first step into social.
Nice.
When I come here. Yeah. You all have a social hour every day. Yeah.
Social hour is our happy hour.
Okay.
It's every day from 4 p.m. when we open to 6 p.m. at night, and we do it all night long on Tuesdays. So Tuesdays tend to be pretty popular here. We get a pretty big crowd on Tuesdays.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it social hour? Is there a deal or a certain type of drink?
We have like a whole page that's all discounted cocktails. We've got an offering of one red by the glass, one white by the glass, one sparkling by the glass. We've got a beer offering on there as well as a few little like nibbles, some food offerings as well.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
a whole page here.
Yep.
And you said whiskey smash on this list, and that's one of your most popular.
Whiskey Smash and Lavender Sour both are on that list.
There they are.
Mm-hmm.
So every day, 4 to 6, or Tuesdays.
Or Tuesdays all night long.
Social hour. So listeners, if you would like discounted on this back page, you gotta come in during that time.
Right.
And Punch Wednesday.
Punch Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's an opportunity for our bartenders to really get down and play with something that maybe they hadn't even thought of before. Punch is offered every Wednesday, usually around 6 o'clock is when they start it up. And then it's just a little glass of punch for $3, just kind of to start your night off right. And, they get a lot of creativity. They can figure out different ways to use different liqueurs and different spirits within that as well. So,
Right.
they have a lot of fun with that.
That's neat. And then Wine Rack Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Wine Rack Thursday is, we do 20% off all bottles of wine on Thursdays.
Oh, nice.
And it's nice in the state of Colorado that if you can't finish your bottle of wine, you can actually cork it and take it with you.
Oh, really?
Take it home with you. So
That's nice.
it's kind of nice for people to get into, something different.
Yeah. Yes, y'all have events multiple days of the week, or at least these themed offerings.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's very nice.
Yep.
I noticed a big event on the website called Repeal Day. Is that an annual event, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Repeal Day is December 5th every year.
December 5th.
It is the day that Prohibition was repealed in 1933. So we have a party every year to celebrate. We have these picket signs that, we try to make look from the era, and we have photographers come in, and everyone tends to dress the part. It's pretty fun. It's a good little party. We also have a party coming up, too, our 5-year anniversary party on September 17th. It's our annual Gatsby party, and that's more like 20s themed, the flapper outfits.
Yeah.
We serve a lot of champagne that night, and everyone comes in costume. It's really an amazing sight. All of our guests come in costume, and you look around here at 11 o'clock at night on, whatever night we choose to do it on, and everyone's in costume. It's really a great time. We have photographers for that as well, and we have Caldera Creative come in and help us recreate, a different vibe in the bar. We hang chandeliers from the steps coming down, and do a few other little things that are really fun.
Right. So, do you all sell tickets for these events, or are they just
Nope, just first come, first
come as
serve.
you are? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, y'all usually pretty good turnout for
Oh
those.
yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah, I
fun.
imagine.
We tend to try to do them on nights that are not busy nights. Not a Friday or a Saturday, because we want to celebrate our regular guests. So we want them to be able to get in, So we tend to do them on off nights. Like our Gatsby party this year is going to be on a Monday night.
Right.
Which is, kind of a crazy notion. But, we want people to be able to pop in if they can and not have to wait in line so long. And, have that experience.
And what about yourself? How did Jen Beshore end up general manager at Social?
I got hired on about a month before we opened here. I was hired on actually as a server. One of my friends kind of brought me into the fold. I hadn't worked with him before, but he told me about this place, and I had just recently moved back into town, and I liked the idea. I liked the vibe. I really felt like I believed in the people that were running the show right off the bat. So, yeah, gave it a shot. And within probably 4 or 5 months, I was managing and working with Ty, kind of, being preened as his right hand, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
You just fit right in.
Yeah.
That's very neat. So you've been here since before day one.
Yep.
Yeah. And how did you find out about Social? Before it was opening.
My friend Rafi Georgiarian was the bar manager here. He's the one that told me about it. He was pretty much the one that brought me in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, are you from Northern Colorado, or?
I've lived in Colorado off and on. I went to high school here, actually, in Fort Collins. Moved here in '87, and my family still lives here, so that's why I came back a little over 5.5 years ago, something like that. But I've traipsed about a little bit here and there too. Spent quite a number of years in Denver as well, and most recently, before I came back to Fort Collins, I was in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, nice. How'd you like Portland?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Portland's amazing. There's this sense of creative entrepreneurship that just cannot be rivaled, I think.
Right.
That's in Portland.
Yeah. Did you enjoy Denver while you were down there?
Love it. Miss it. It's getting a little big for its britches, but... But I love the creativity, too, and the culture, and there's always a great place to eat, always some good food, and good drinks, and for me, it's all about live music as well.
Live music, yeah.
Yep.
And that River North district is always off the chain.
Oh, it's crazy. It's actually kind of sad to me. It's, as much as they've developed it, it still is really a rougher area of town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think I had lived here a couple of years before the first time I went out downtown. And it was strange to me because I had done all the museums. I'd done the 16th Street Mall. I'd done a Rockies game, but I'd never been down at Denver, I think, at night. And so if someone had shown me a map of Denver and said, where do you go out for drinks, I wouldn't have had any idea.
Right.
And I remember the first time I ended up at night by Coors Field, right in that area of bars, I was blown away.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, there's a lot here. It's like super loud. Everyone's here. And it's a really neat area.
Yeah,
So,
Lodo's pretty cool.
Yeah, Lodo. And there's all these Rhino and Lodo and...
Lohi.
Yeah. Coloradans love their abbreviations.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you live anywhere outside the state besides Portland?
Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest.
Where at?
I was born in Kansas.
Mm.
Lived in Kansas briefly, Iowa. Grew up in Nebraska before I came to Colorado.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Lawrence for about 5 months.
I love Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah.
Tell you what.
Yeah,
some of my favorite people are there.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. When you go out on Mass Street on Lawrence, I went to Oklahoma State for my undergrad in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, when I went out on Mass Street in Lawrence, there was like a historical feel to all the places there. And maybe I was just drinking the Kool-Aid, but I liked it there.
There's a really beautiful history, I think, of Lawrence, Kansas. And it's, and maybe it's that William S. Burroughs lived there, So for me, it's always about, writers and poetry and this little bit of, magic that you see just in a really humid night when there's fireflies everywhere. Lawrence has just that spark of creativity and artistic nature, I think. And I don't know, that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, and being right next to Kansas City, I had moved there from here, but Kansas City really impressed me. I enjoyed my time there. Yeah, it was a neat area. So you've been around the northern Colorado for a good portion, if not the majority of your life.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah. And do you enjoy the overall sense of community out here? Do you feel
yeah. Oh yeah. I love, one of my favorite things is when people come in here to social and they're typically, the conversation I will have with someone from the East Coast is like this. Why are people so happy and friendly? They have no idea what is going on. And I think it really makes them uncomfortable a lot of the times. But people here in Fort Collins and in northern Colorado really, I think, are very happy. and that shows, people walking down the street will say hello to you and make eye contact, and those things that are not necessarily normal in a big city or different areas of the country. So I really think that Fort Collins and Northern Colorado has this really bright light around it.
I agree.
Even though it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I really think it is just such a beautiful, bright community.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to be here.
Well, we got the crisp, dry mountain air. Mm-hmm. We got the Rocky Mountains.
Beautiful sunshine.
Need to say more. Mm-hmm. Tons of sunshine.
Yeah.
When it snows, it's typically not icy. It's powder, so it's not necessarily on the streets, but you get to enjoy the look of snow. And going outside here is a thing. There are a lot of places where you just don't go outside for fun.
Yep.
And, I feel like just people being happy is a thing, and it's also contagious. Mm-hmm. So if people are appreciative, then it starts to flow out to other people, even if they're not necessarily connected to being an outdoors person, or maybe they're not the most granola or all about getting out there every weekend and like being extreme. I think these things are contagious. And
yeah. I would agree.
Yeah, and just I feel like that word community comes up a lot, and that's one of the words I had thought about using for this show. I wanted to try to fit the word community in the title because I felt like that's what I was doing here. But no, I really enjoy it. Yeah. Is there anything besides the community that you and social that you particularly enjoy about FOCO, Fort Collins?
Well, I love what the Bohemian Foundation is bringing to this town as far as music goes. They just opened Washington's live music venue, the Armory right before that. They've been bringing just these amazing bands through Fort Collins, which 10 years ago that just wasn't a thing. It wasn't possible. And now, I think this community within the spectrum of music is really making its presence known, and I think that's incredible. I love to see that with the music district opening up and so many resources for artists and musicians. I love seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny you mention it. I have 2 bands potentially on the table to interview next week.
Nice.
So, yeah, and they're both located here in Fort Collins. So,
very cool. What bands are they?
Shatterproof and Post Paradise.
Nice.
So, I'd never heard of them. I just kind of typed in Fort Collins, like bands you should know, or like NoCo bands you should know. So maybe after this we'll have to talk off the record, maybe get some recommendations from you.
That's cool. I interview bands every week on the radio station. Right.
Okay. So your radio show, you mentioned this before. You said is there like 3-hour sets that you do, and what? Where can people tune in for that?
It's separated into 2 different shows. One of them is called Locally Sourced. It's from noon to 1 every Wednesday, and that's the one where I talk to musicians that are coming through town and bands that live here, and just get to know a little bit more about different bands that maybe you haven't heard of before. And then the second part of it is from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesdays as well, and that's just like a music mix show. I just like sitting behind the curtain, so to speak, and just putting new music out there and seeing what people tend to enjoy. And this is on KRFC. Okay. And that's 88.9 FM here in town.
88.9. Do you have people that come into social and say, "Oh, I heard you on the radio"?
No, not really. I've had a couple people recognize my voice, but yeah, pretty rare. I try to keep the 2 a little bit separate.
Oh, it's intentional. I see. Yeah, and you enjoy that? You get to interview bands on a weekly basis, I think?
Yeah, it's really fun. Got me out of my comfort zone a little bit. I wasn't really used to doing that, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Podcasting.
But it's neat.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Oh, I don't. Whatever.
Oh, no, I lost it. I probably killed the best comment of the whole thing right there. Podcasting will do that too.
Right.
During each one, I sit I sit here, I mean, I thought it this time. I sit here and think, under no other circumstance would we probably be sitting here doing this.
Right.
Than if I had cold emailed you all and asked you to do a podcast. Has that led me to have conversations and have experiences I would never have otherwise.
Well, I think it's a great idea. You know, there's something to it. Just having some kind of documentation about just a tiny little piece of a day, a tiny little piece of history. I think there's really something to be admired within that, you know, that you want to get in there and just, you know, save it for something.
Right.
You know, you never know what that's going to end up being, but...
Yeah. My friend had talked about this idea where he would film himself talking to a camera once a year, and he would just kind of go through who he was, what his thoughts were, what was on his mind, what were his troubles, and he would keep these documents over time, and then 20, 30 years later, he could pull up a video of him
right
when he was younger, and what he looked like, sounded like, what was on his plate at that time.
Right.
I thought, wow, that is an idea. You know, I haven't done that, but... So, okay, we were going to let you set up here for social. You get Friday night. You got a big evening ahead of you.
Yep, Friday night.
So if you want to reach out to Jen, where should they find you, or how can they get a hold of you, or the social, socials, online presence?
You can find us at www.socialfortcollins.com. That's Fort Collins spelled out, F-O-R-T, Collins. You can get a hold of us 970-449-5606, or you can just swing on down to number 1 Old Town Square, suite number 7, and experience it for yourself.
And I will highly recommend that. They've got to get down here and check this place out.
Absolutely.
I know I'll be coming back soon.
Nice.
So,
nice.
And thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Great.
I want to say a very special thanks to Russell Isaac Long, the man responsible for writing and mixing all the music tracks used here at the More You NoCo. If you'd like to access any content in addition to these episodes, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The More You NoCo. If you have ideas for people you'd like to hear on the show, hit us up at the email themoreyouKnoco@gmail.com. Until next time, peace!